What's up everybody, welcome back to another video.
Do that with Acrobat, Adobe Acrobat. Use PDF Spaces, it's your new foundation. Grab your
Hello everybody, welcome back to the show. It is an end of 2023 review. It's the best lessons that I've learned over the last 12 months. I did one of these a year ago and it went down really well and I really enjoyed the process, so I figured I'd do it again. If you want to do an end of year review, I have a free template which you can actually go and do right now. You can download it and it'll help to structure your end of 2023 review and give you plans for 2024. You can go and get that at chriswillx.com/review. It's completely free. You can just copy it and fill it in and use your notes app of choice, chriswillx.com/review. All right, let's get into it. First one is you should just be yourself, not because it will make you more likable, it won't, but because it's only by being yourself that you'll find people who like you for who you really are rather than someone you're pretending to be. That's from Gwinder Bogle. And this was one of the biggest realizations of my 20s. The advantage of doing this thing where you sort of push off who you really are is that no criticism will ever fully land because you're 1 degree removed from the person who's being criticized. But the disadvantage is that you're also removed from the person who's being complimented. And if you're only playing a role, you never fully feel connected to the successes that you have in your life. Any accolades or warmth that you receive won't resonate properly in your heart because it's not you who's receiving it. It's the character that you're pretending to be. Aubrey Marcus said, "The persona is incapable of receiving love. It can only receive praise." And this is how you can feel alone in a crowd and hollow in victory. If you haven't shown your true self to the people around you, you are inevitably going to feel disconnected from them. And the people who would have fallen in love with the true you will pass you by because that person is never presented. The persona subsumes the person. This isn't the people around you's fault either. Like, you need to take responsibility for this. There are reasons to fear truly showing up, but they pale in insignificance compared to the reasons to hide away. Like, even if all that you want is success, your highest point of unique contribution involves you fully embracing you. Forget the actualizing yourself forward and offering the world something which no one else can. Naval Ravikant says no one can beat you at being you. The absolute best that you can hope for if you're playing a role is to be the second best in the world at being someone else. I did this research for a TEDx talk that I did a couple of years ago around Salvador Dali. So Dali's parents gave birth to a child about 9 months before Dali was born, who was also called Salvador, and they were adamant that he was the reincarnation of their lost child. So like that was how he entered the world, which might explain kind of why he was a bit crazy later on in life. When he was a child, he used to throw himself down the stairs. He was a masochist. He used to enjoy throwing himself down the stairs. He once gave a speech, a keynote speech at a university, and he had to be wrenched out of a deep sea diving suit that he'd put himself into mid-talk because he was suffocating. The woman that he ended up marrying, he married this lady who got this lady away from a marriage. He was in one, so was she. They both separated, came together, and he literally thought that she was his muse, that she was like divine. He immediately bought her a castle and then sent her formal letters of request in order for him to be able to go and visit her in the castle that he'd bought her. So just super eccentric guy. But the point is, that is part and parcel of Salvador Dali. If he hadn't done all of those other things, the world would have been fundamentally less, because as brilliant as they were, Michelangelo didn't do Dali, and Da Vinci didn't do Dali. So had Salvador been anything short of his absolute, unapologetic, showing up self to the world would have been fundamentally less. He would have been a pale imitation of something or someone else. So yeah, that insight from Gwyndor around you should just be yourself, not because it'll make you more likable, but because you'll actually find people who like you for who you are rather than someone you're pretending to be. There's like 10 different reasons to do that. But I also understand that it's scary, and if you don't have confidence that who you are when you fully expose yourself is someone that's likable, it means that, well, you don't want to do it. But again, like, having people fall in love with some fake version of you doesn't seem like it would be very fulfilling either. Next one. It's one thing to get what you want, but it's another thing to want what's worth getting. That's from...
What? Hold on.
You doesn't seem like it would be very fulfilling either. Next one. It's one thing to get what you want, but it's another thing to want what's worth getting.
Want what is worth getting, and get what you want. There's two different sides. Get what you want and want what you worth getting. Want what you worth versus want what you were worth getting. What he means is without wanting with what you want to get and getting with what you want. Those are two different sides of the coin and two different sides of the construct of where they come into pieces, which is want with what is getting and worth what is worth getting. Which means two sides of the head, two sides of the coin that is waiting to be getting with is what is want.
That's from Shane Parrish. And this is just like a really great insight that the danger of not spending time working out what you want can cause you, no matter how hard you work, to move in the wrong direction. Your life, as far as I can see it, should be lived by design, not by default. And this guy, Kyle Eschenroder, explains it so well. He said, blindly following your desires makes you a slave to your impulses, a slave to the assumptions of those around you.
Blindly following your desires makes you a slave to your impulses. Without desire, you are nothing. Without happiness or happenstance, you are nothing. You are made up of these flaws, and these flaws are only made for what is the bare minimum, which is the bare minimum of what these flaws are.
Advertisements you're exposed to and the confused chemical signals of your body. If we don't pause and ask ourselves what we want to want, we will spend our lives focused on unhealthy aims defined for us by others and the worst parts of ourselves. We will pass these bad assumptions about life onto our children and loved ones. We will reinforce these boring, desperate defaults in everything and everyone we encounter. To achieve freedom, we must be able to think for ourselves. If we don't cut to the core and program our wants, then our best case scenario is to be a rich, famous, or successful slave. If we never peer into our programming, then we may end up being the cleverest rat in the room, but that's hardly worth celebrating. In short, your default factory settings are shit. Don't follow them. People who will never actually, the people who do this are never going to fully actualize their potential either for happiness or for success. There's this quote from Seneca where he says, "They do not what they intended, but what they happen to run across." So you can...
They do not what they have intended, but they do what they run across. What you run is what you are saying. What you intend to do is your own voice coming from inflection, coming from within.
Imagine
If you're doing $1 million or more a year and you'd like to get to 10 million or $100 million, I can promise you
it's the difference between being a cork bobbing around in the ocean, which moves, but it doesn't move under its own steam or with its own desire and its own direction, and being a boat, which actually forces itself through the environment toward a direction that it's chosen. So if you think about it, that your desires define your own path of least resistance, what you want is to be able to arrive at a place where the things that you want are the things that you want to want. And that's why desires are important.
Things that you want to want are these so-called desires, so-called dreams, so-called waiting for them to happen. The maker of the money, the maker of the desire, the maker of the dream is the maker of you.
Through deliberate training that at first feels tedious, you can eventually arrive at that place where what you want is what you want to want. And that's where the life should be lived by design, not default things comes in, because your default factory settings send you off into like such strange, sub-optimized areas of life, like whatever the current societal norms are, or the way that you've dealt with past trauma, or what your parents made you think that you were supposed to like. All of those things aren't things that you necessarily want to want. They could be, but you need to get it, like stress test this and work out whether or not it is. So yes, a life should be lived by design, not default. It's one thing to get what you want, but it's another thing to want what's worth getting. Next one, toxic compassion. So this is one of my favorites. By the way, everyone gave me shit the last time that I was doing a solo episode because I was drinking. Just FYI, I drink on the normal episodes as well. I'm talking for an hour. I need some sort of moisture and hydration in my face. Difference is, I can usually mute the mic and do it while the other person's talking when it's a two-way episode. So forgive me that I need to be hydrated, but someone accused me of not having any drink. It's obvious that there's nothing in the can. It's like, why would you be lifting this to my face if there wasn't anything in it? Anyway, I will be drinking throughout solo episodes. I apologize. I'll try and drink quietly. There we are. Toxic compassion. Toxic compassion is this really... I love it. It's one of the coolest ideas that I've come up with this year. And I was looking for a name for this phenomenon that I'd seen for so long. And I cycled through, what was it, like the shallow pond of empathy, fucking like Satan, like the inverse of Satan's love, like all sorts of weird and wonderful other words. And then toxic compassion just came to me and I thought, that's it. So toxic compassion is the prioritization of short-term emotional comfort over everything else, over truth, reality, actual long-term outcomes, flourishing, everything. It optimizes for looking good rather than doing good. And this is seen in much of popular culture.
Looking good versus doing good. What you look is how you are acting by design, which is acting by default, which is acting by autopilot. So how you look is how you act. If that makes sense. It makes sense to me.
As the desirable, fair, empathetic thing to do. And it's everywhere. People would rather claim that body fat has no bearing on health and mortality outcomes to avoid making overweight people feel upset, even if this causes them to literally die sooner or have a worse quality of life over the long run. Parents would rather allow children to play computer games or watch screens and access social media every night instead of dealing with the discomfort of taking it away from them, even if it ruins their brain development, social skills, and self-esteem. And people would rather say that children growing up in single-parent households suffer no worse outcomes than those from two-parent homes, even if this misleads parents, children, and teachers about why kids behave the way that they do. Campaigners would sooner shout, defund the police, as a response to what they perceive as the unfair treatment of criminals, even if this results in more crimes being committed against people from minority backgrounds due to the abandonment of police officers from those very areas. And Elon Musk recently responded to some criticism about his political alignment and contribution to climate change and skepticism of it, I think. And then he identified how big of a shift Tesla had caused in the electric vehicle market and the downstream impact of that on the environment. He said he's done more for the climate than any other human in history. And this quote from him is, "What I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil." And the important trade-off with all of those examples, including Elon's, is between appearing good and actually doing good. So telling people what they want to hear, giving them immediate gratification, and avoiding saying anything that could cause distress prioritizes the former of looking good over the latter of doing good. And the net effect is usually wildly negative. It's like a toddler who wants to eat ice cream every night. Sure, that might be what they want in the moment, but it's going to be wildly unhealthy over the long term. And I asked Jordan Peterson about this on our last episode, and he said that's exactly what the Oedipal situation is. It's the prioritization of short-term emotional comfort over long-term thriving. It's going to hurt now, but the long-term consequences are positive.
It's gonna hurt now, but the long-term things are positive. What he means by that is that without the long term, without the so-called long-term goals, long-term aspirations, you are just a side quest waiting to be unlocked. You're waiting to be said, you're waiting to be read, like an opening of a book. Which means you can be read, you can be understood, you can be believed about this one so-called thing.
Give up your children to the world, you will keep them. And this prospect of appearing bad while doing good is obviously not very enticing. Like, you get all of the negatives up front of not appearing like somebody that cares and is empathetic, even though, yeah, sure enough, down the line, people will benefit from it, but you're going to be lambasted and criticized and seem like someone who doesn't care in the moment. And the opposite of this is performative empathy, saying whatever is required to look good, even if you don't actually care. And on the internet, the gap between words and actions has never been bigger. You can be the least virtuous, the meanest, most dishonest human on earth, but if you say the right things, if your thumbs literally hit the right buttons on a screen, you look like a saint. And no one ever stress tests the words coming out of your mouths. So it means that appearing good actually becomes more important than doing good. So the
incentive of being good versus looking good is an incentive that can run content creators into the drain. Like for me, I'm trying to be the best version of myself by posting every single day, but it's hard when I don't have the motivation to actually post, to actually say the things over camera, which I'm afraid to talk about.
Of performative empathy kind of creates the basis for toxic compassion as a trend. You know, posting about mistreated groups is more incentivized than actually helping mistreated groups. All of the people who have put a flag in their bio but have never actually donated to a charity. And this isn't me saying that you can't do good whilst also talking about it. It's that many, maybe even most of the people who proselytize about how virtuous and caring they are and about how it's everyone else who is evil and uncaring and the enemy are allowing their morality to stand on the shoulders of limited scrutiny. Peterson said, it's like, look how good I am. well, if the look at comes before the how good I am, it really wreaks havoc with the claim. I think that the big lesson here is just beware the people who prioritize saying good things because they might not actually be doing good things. This balance between what is it that you're saying, how does it look, and what are you doing, what are the outcomes? I see it everywhere. And this idea of toxic compassion, I think, is useful. It's a useful frame. And I don't know, everyone kind of has this in the back of their mind. There's a degree of skepticism and scrutiny about anyone that says something good online. But we all know that there are huge, huge swaths of people who are probably not that nice, probably not that caring, probably don't really give a shit about whatever the topic or movement.
Wanna buy your way? Wanna pre-qualify?
Is that they're getting behind or supposed to be a front runner for. Lizzo. Lizzo's supposed to be this paragon of virtue and supporting these girls and giving them a platform. Behind the scenes, she's body shaming her dancers. She's forcing them to go on fasts when she isn't, making them eat bananas out of the vaginas of Amsterdam strippers. Ellen DeGeneres, Jimmy Fallon, allegedly, all of these people that out front are these sort of cutesy, nicey people, and behind the scenes, the staff that have worked with them who know them best say that they're tyrants, super mean. So yeah, I just think there's not really a way around this. I'd be interested to try and think of a way around this, because what you're supposed to do, it's easier to see someone's words than it is their deeds. Deeds can be faked as well. And there's always going to be an incentive for people to just say the right thing. Again, say an increasingly complex or convincing set of mouth, face, thumb noises so that you believe whatever it is. But yeah, I thought toxic compassion, one of the probably top 5 memes that's come out of this year. All right, next one. This is Elon as well, and this was on Lex's show. It's such a good insight. You look at Elon as somebody who is probably quite admired by lots of people on the internet, wealth, status, influence, all the rest of it. And Lex asked how he was doing and sort of what it's like to be him. And Elon replied, "My mind is a storm. I don't think most people would want to be me. They may think they would want to be me, but they don't. They don't know. They don't understand." And this is why jealousy is a stupid emotion. In fact, envy is it's the only one of the 7 deadly sins which doesn't actually feel good. Think about that. So Naval says about jealousy, "I realized that all of these people I was jealous of, I couldn't just cherry pick and choose little aspects of their life. I couldn't say, I want his body, I want her money, I want his personality. You have to be that person. Do you actually want to be that person with all of their reactions, their desires, their family, their happiness level, their outlook on life, their self-image? If you're not willing to do a wholesale 24/7, 100% swap with who that person is, then there is no point in being jealous." It seems obvious, but it's so counterintuitive to how we all relate to the people that we admire. We look at humans that we are jealous of as ubiquitous successes, this sort of brilliant collage worthy of life-wide admiration and envy, and we presume that we could add the elements of their life which we love, like taking clothes off a rail. But that's not how life works. The outfit that you are imagining trying on is head to toe, not pick and choose. It's a onesie, right? Not an a la carte wardrobe. The price that you would need to pay to be the person or the people that you admire is often one that you wouldn't foot the bill for. And this is what we're seeing with Elon as well. That this dude who's, created potentially one of the coolest, most innovative cars in history with the Cybertruck that just got released a couple of weeks ago. And he's on stage doing like weird robot dances in Japan, sending rockets to Mars. You're trying to make humanity multi-planetary species. Like, you look at him and you think, well, he must, if he doesn't have it sorted, if he's not the guy, who is? One of the wealthiest people on the planet, you bought Twitter just basically for fun. Well, he's saying, my mind is a storm. People think they would want to be me, but they don't. They don't know. They don't understand. Like, that is the ground truth reality of his life. And yeah, I just think, again, for reminding us that people who outwardly have lots of things going for them inwardly can be suffering and have completely unadmirable, undesirable internal states. In fact, perhaps the people who are most desirable externally may correlate with being the least desirable internally. It gives us a couple of things. First off, it can give us a little bit of empathy that success outwardly doesn't fix all problems internally, and it helps us to stop accusing things of being first world problems a lot. And secondly, it helps us realize that just because someone does have lots of things outwardly that we might desire, that doesn't mean that we should actually be in any way envious of them or that they're a particularly good person. Doesn't mean that they're good just because they're successful. Speaking of that, there was this, I've quoted it a lot this year, so sorry if you've heard this one before, but the documentary following Lewis Capaldi around as he's going through this big change in scrutiny and status and fame.
Ladies, God bless you guys. The next one. Peace.